Good evening, my friends. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing good. I hope everyone's feeling chill. I can't say groovy. I just can't do that to Mr. Buzz. That's his thing. Hope everyone's feeling chill. I hope you're all ready to learn something. It is Monday night. It is January 12th. We're looking at 8:51 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got three of you here. Well, or two or three. I've seen three for a little bit. I'm happy to have all of you here. I hope you enjoy what we're going to talk about tonight, what we're going to discuss, what we're going to go over, yada, yada, yada. Yes, I watched Seinfeld. I used to watch him a lot. But we had three. I don't know where the other one went unless maybe he got disconnected. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight, or I should say I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight. Bear with me. I did not write down any notes on paper. I got them on my computer. So I'm going to be kind of going back and forth, but you'll still see me because of the camera, but I might look like I'm like brain dead or something for a second. All right. So either way, tonight we're going to discuss something that is very important because anyone that knows anything about the way regular life is, you know that the youth are the future of the country. Our youth now, our youth today is in bad shape. We've seen it all. And I'm going to juxtapose the youth of today, like Gen Z and millennials, against my generation, which was the 70s, 80s generation. I was born in 1970. I imagine a lot of you guys were born maybe even some earlier, maybe in the 60s. But it doesn't matter when you're born. You can be born in 2015 and watch this. But I doubt people will be that 10 years old watching this. But either way, I want to juxtapose the different and try and tell people this is why. When I had my old show years ago, I used to tell people, if you're a parent, a guardian, a grandparent, anyone that oversees a child, I think it is very imperative. I mean, I think it should be mandatory that you get involved in your child's education, that you get involved, that you don't just be a bystander, that you don't just sit on the sidelines. Yeah. That's you're right, Pygmalion. But I think it's imperative on parents to start getting involved. We used to have PTAs, Parent Teacher Association. It's kind of coincidental how all of a sudden them seem to go the way of the dodo bird. All of a sudden they're kind of archaic and benign, or not benign, also archaic and just kind of in vogue, I guess you might say. But either way, today's youth, believe it or not, face much more challenges than we faced when we were going to school. I'm going to explain to you why. Just bear with me here, okay? The culture, today's generation versus my generation, first of all, the culture has gotten exponentially worse since the 80s and even really the 90s. Kids years ago, yeah, we have been. You're right, Pygmalion. Kids today, the culture has just gotten rotten to the core. It's a problem, and a lot of people see it, but the problem is parents have to. It's an incumbent. I mean, these are your children, for the love of God. These are your grandchildren. These are your nephews and nieces. Don't cede control over your kids to the schools, right? Because you can't trust them anymore. I mean, so I say churches used to be a lot more. This is how another way you can tell that our culture is rotted. And as far as the children, kids in the 50s, 60s, I'm sure, Kirk, you can attest to this. Welcome to the two new people here. I hope you stay for the whole thing, if you would, but it's up to you. Everyone's got a free will. But kids back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s, some of us would still go to church. You'd still have church attendance. I mean, today the churches are emptying out. Now, I've heard it's kind of starting to bounce back the other way slowly, which is good, especially after, unfortunately, untimely death, the assassination, the murder of Charlie Kirk. But a lot of kids are starting to go back, and people are starting to do that, and that's good. That's good. We hope that happens. But in the 90s and 2000s, the last decade and stuff, churches were been emptying out. I mean, there's been churches around my area that have closed. They're not in service anymore, and that's sad because church is what builds that bedrock. Even if you don't get saved, if you go to Sunday school, You can bet you're going to learn some good lessons. We learned a lot in Sunday school. I know I did. We didn't go to Sunday school a lot, but we would go to church. But we learned a lot in church. Of course, my dad would make sure that we, listen. We weren't allowed to screw off. Today, there's times I've been to church, the church I go to, and I see some of these younger people. Yeah, church, Kirk, you're right. Totally, 100%. You guys are both right with what you're saying. But I see kids in the aisles, and they're not even paying attention. Now, I know that sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I'm the first to admit it, church can be boring. But it's crucial that you listen as a Christian to grow in Christ. Because it's the only defense you're going to have. If you grow in Christ, get in the Word, pray, as they say, stay prayed up. Them are the only ways you're going to be able to withstand this world. Them are the only ways you're going to be able to be a solid Christian where people can look at you and say, I want to know what's going on with this guy. This girl, they seem kind of different. They seem to be immune to all this depression and everything, which we're going to get into a little bit later. Today's youth also face much tougher challenges, especially if you're a Christian child, because we all know the schools are a mess. I mean, today kids don't even really know how to socialize. That's the thing that's sad about it. Kids don't know how to socialize today. You've seen them. I've literally seen 3 or 4 kids together, like in friendship groups, whatever, and they're all on their phones. They're all on their phones. Now, I mean, I'm not saying everyone's got to be like me, all right? But when I was a kid, growing up in the 80s, being a teenager in the 80s, when we'd go to the malls, we didn't sit there. Of course, we didn't have cell phones, and that's kind of exactly what I'd like to get at. We didn't have cell phones, but we do this revolutionary thing called talking to each other, using our mouths instead of using our fingers. One thing we used our fingers for was video games, but while we were playing video games, we still were talking. We were socializing. Today's kids don't socialize, and that is so crucial. I mean, I should say they almost don't know how to socialize. I'm not saying they never talk, but I'm simply saying they prefer their phones over talking to someone. That's why I've talked to girls before where they wanted to text. They didn't want to talk on the phone. They wanted to text. That's a wacky form of socializing, all right? It doesn't give you you can't tell a whole lot by a person texting. You can tell a little bit, but not a lot. When you talk to someone's voice, you can hear the inflection, the tone of their voice. You can find out a lot of things about a person just by talking to them. Now, you can't find anything about their looks, and I know that matters, but nonetheless, I feel really bad for the kids today. You look at churches today and Christian and worship services and kids that are in school. Now, you may not see a whole lot of it, but a lot of them are derided. They're basically, if someone says, "No, I'm not going to do that," that's wrong. They're going to mock them. They're going to talk at least behind their back. Oh, that kid, he's a square, man. He won't. We went to the bathroom. We smoked a joint. He wouldn't smoke with us. He said no. What a dork. What a loser. That's most likely what they're going to say. There's going to be some they're going to stand up and say, hey, he don't have to smoke with us. That's his right, And them are the ones that are kind of in the middle, which hopefully they come over to our side completely because there's no hope for you if you don't. How you doing, Stereo Heavens? God bless you, brother or girl. I'm not even sure if you're a girl or a boy. No offense. Don't take that wrong. You've never told me if you're a girl or a boy. And I don't know if I've ever seen on Mr. Buzz. And one of the big problems I would say today is teachers. Teachers, and we all know school is a huge part. School is a huge part. Sister. Okay. My sister, thank you and hello. Sorry about that, Sister Stereo. Either way, today teachers, when I was going to school, and I know this sounds like one of them old Andy Griffith episodes. When I was going to school, you've heard old people talk about that, and I guess I would to an extent be an old person. I'm 55. But either way, when we were going to school, a lot of us, teachers taught the curriculum. They didn't delve into their personal lives. They didn't sit there and start trying to advocate to people for certain things. They taught. I can't think of one of my teachers when I think back. trying to think. I'm talking about high school right now. Mrs. Grant, Mr. James, Mr. Fisher, Miss Andres, Miss Miller, Mr. Stephan. I'm trying to think of all the. I'm spitballing right now of all the different teachers I had, and I can't think of one of them that ever went off into their personal life or politics, or tried to proselytize to children and stuff. Today, I've heard it absolutely does happen. I mean, they'll have a rainbow flag right in the classroom. No big, act like it's no big deal. It is a big deal. Kids don't need to be being exposed to that trash. And I don't care how mean that sounds, they don't. But teachers, it ain't just that they get about their personal life, they also get political. And they'll sit there and start and this stuff used to happen with colleges. It wasn't in the high schools. Back in the 80s, I know this for a fact. I mean, maybe your high school is an exception, but most of the high schools the high school I went to and the other places, yeah, I can believe that. You're older than I am, Kirk. But in my early days, when I went to elementary and like kindergarten, first grade and stuff, I was living in Michigan at the time. I was like probably 75, 76. We used to say the pledge. Now, prayer, I don't think that was because that Madeline Murray O'Hare, that blank, I'm not going to say that word, but that Madeline Murray O'Hare, she ruined a lot. But we used to get up and we'd say the Pledge of Allegiance. They don't even do that anymore that I know of. And we didn't do it in high school. But either way, a lot of this activism stuff. Oh yeah, the LGBT stuff. Yeah, that's definitely very invasive. But either way, the children today didn't have to worry about the stuff that we didn't have to worry about, that stuff that they have to worry about today. All right, because all that stuff was in the colleges. That's where it all started out. People always want to know what went wrong with our country. It's not all these other things we've talked about. You know what went wrong with our country? Colleges. I've always said this. I said this on my last show, which I had years ago. As much as I love the World War II generation and I respect them for what they've done, they really dropped the ball when they came back, because the World War II generation spawned the baby boom generation. And the baby boom generation is where we got the counterculture. In my opinion, the World War II generation, when their kids started, because what do they want to do? The World War II generation, they wanted to see their kids have better lives. So what would they do? They'd send them to college. They sent them to college. So they would go to college. They would go off to college, and we lost another one. Oh well. They'd go off to college, and then they would come back, and the parents had to notice that they were talking different and sounding different, and things were not like maybe even being a little bit slightly antagonistic towards religion. But they weren't stupid. These people that took over the colleges, they were not dumb. They were smart. They did it in increments, baby steps. That's how the left works. And that's basically who took over the colleges. A lot of people don't realize this. I'm going to give you a quick history lesson. Just bear with me here. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the problems of our colleges today, you know where they disseminate from, believe it or not? Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany. Because there was something over in Germany called the Frankfurt School. Now, this school was a radical critical theory school. And there was people in this, the professors and stuff, they really were into socialism and communism, and not just, what do you call it, economic communism, but social communism. Like, in other words, social beliefs and stuff, and believing in God, and the whole man-woman thing. The Frankfurt School, look it up. It was evil. I think it still exists, but it was bad, and that's where a lot of our problems come from. Because in Germany, when Hitler came to power, a lot of these people left. So Hitler screwed us in a way we don't even realize it. Excuse my language. Sorry about the language. Hitler in a way messed us over without even realizing it. When he kicked them, basically the people they left, either they were left or they were kicked out. I think most of them left on their own. Where did they go? They went to America, our place. Well, I don't know if all you guys are Americans. I know, Kirk, I know you're American. But they came to America. What did they do? Where did they set up? You know, one of the biggest first places they set up at? Something called King's College. You know what King's College is today? Columbia University. And then they just disseminated from out through there. You know, they would set up, it would be like, kind of like how vampires work. And of course, The association is not exactly far off because vampirism supposedly is a virus, and that's the way I look at the left wing. They just created new leftists and stuff. They started teaching in the colleges, and then these kids that would graduate, say in the late 50s or whatever, they go off and they might want to be a teacher or an instructor, and it just spread everywhere like a virus. And unfortunately, that's where all this stuff comes from. That's why the 60s was so messed up. I mean, the stuff that was happening in the 60s was directly as a result of King's College with all them, you know, like Georgi Horkheimer, oh gosh, Herbert Marcuse, people like that. Now, I don't know if they're all from the same generation, but they all disseminated from the Frankfurt School in Frankfurt, Germany. Not Frankfurt, Kentucky, Frankfurt, Germany. That's why we're having the problems we're having right now. Um, but the activism originally was in the colleges, but now it's in the high schools and even the junior high. Sometimes even down to elementary. That's sick. To me, there's nothing worse than someone tries to take away a child's their youth and not let them be a kid. And I don't just mean necessarily social things. Some stakeholder economy. Never thought of that. But a child should be allowed to be a child. They should not be. ISMs are created. Isms. Yeah, I know London is horrible. I mean, you guys got a horrible mayor in London, but then again, America, we're not doing so hot either, so don't feel bad. But I mean, the kids are the future, and they know it. They know it. They know that overall, that back in the 80s, that their message wasn't getting through. So what did they do? They said the hell with it. They retooled, and they started going down even further. Instead, we got to start this stuff earlier than college. We got to start it all the way down to elementary if we can. And what's one of the worst, most invasive things, one of the most invasive things under the socialist communist umbrella? The LGBT ideology. Now, I don't know about the rest of you. I can tell you right now, if I had kids, I want my boys to be men. I want my girls to be ladies or women. Not just, they're always going to be a female because that whole transgender crap, I'm not going to get into that. That's just lunacy. It's lunatic stuff. A boy, when he's born, is XY. That's what he's born. You can't change that. No one can change that. Only God can change it, and he's not going to. He made them. And a woman, a female, is born XX, right? So they're always going to be male and female, right? And there are traits to each sex, all right? We all know men. We all know testosterone is the dominant, one of the most dominant chromosomes. Oh boy, testosterone. I can't think of what it's called, but estrogen for women, testosterone for men. There's a big difference between the sexes, not just the physical part, how men and women act historically. Now, today, unfortunately, and I've seen it. I remember I worked at Speedway. There was a lesbian working there. She acted just like a guy. Chromosomes, yeah. She acted just like a guy. Her name was Carissa. I'm not going to say her last name. She goes, I don't want to do that. But either way, she's just like a guy. She acted exactly like a guy. I think she even wore men's underwear because I think I seen one time. And I was like, because she was bending over and I'm like thinking, gosh, she's wearing Fruit of the Loom whiteys. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But I mean, this is a problem, believe it or not. Not what she wears, not her underwear. But this is a problem in this country. And I think that's another reason. It's funny because Mr. Buzz was talking about dating services tonight. I personally think, in my opinion, that's why romance is dying, love is dying, formal dating is dying, like a man just asking a woman out. Because of why? Because sexual harassment. And that's another form of the activism stuff. It's because of that. It's because women have been completely the opposite of, like, if a man is emasculated, it means he's kind of doesn't act like a man anymore. I'm not sure defeminized is the best thing I can put it, because women today, a lot of them, and I'm not criticizing women, it ain't their fault. It's the generations before that let this crap happen. And it's affecting children in horrible ways. I mean, the LGBT activism. When I was going to school, once again, you didn't see anything LGBT crap. That in some cases today, it's actually promoted. It's actually treated like it's normal. I'm sorry. I don't want to be mean to someone, but it's not normal. It's not normal. It's not natural. And I mean, if someone wants to do that, just don't sit there and tell me that that's your identity. That's not innate to each person. It's not intrinsic, which means it's not built in. It's something that you learn. It's not nature, it's nurture. And a lot of, I've talked, I would say I've talked, but I've read a lot of stuff, and a lot of people that engage in that lifestyle, a lot of them were molested. A lot of them. You talk, do an interview or whatever. And I also remember very vividly to this day, years ago, seeing a video right here on YouTube, or here on YouTube, and they were talking. It was a interview about a documentary about the counterculture of the 60s, and it was a person, kind of a on the street type person, that was walking up and talking to all kinds of people in the Haight Ashbury district around there in San Francisco. And they were talking to them, asking them, what were they there for? Why are you here? They wanted to know. I remember one woman very plainly saying, now a lot of them would say they're there for, what is it, experimentation of the mind, drugs, and sexual experimentation. Some of them flat out said sexual experimentation. Now you tell me, if you're straight or gay, and the way they say it, well, we're made this way, you would need to experiment with it. You'd know it. And I remember the one woman literally saying, well, it's a choice, it's a lifestyle choice, and of course now they've whitewashed it. You probably can't find it all on the internet anymore, because they don't want the truth to get out. Because what is the truth? The truth shall set them free, set us free, all of us. The LGBT, that's probably one of the most invasive movements under the far left umbrella that I can think of. I can't think of much worse than the LGBT movement, which is transgender stuff is part of that. And if you didn't know, but and another thing, I've noticed this, and this was especially since Obama got in. White kids a lot of times are made to feel bad about our race. And I'm not criticizing black people, right? Don't think that I'm criticizing black people. Black people are not, in most cases, it's white people that are doing it to white people. It's white left-wingers and liberals that are doing this. That's why I remember there was a lesson plan. I don't know where I heard it at. I don't know if it was a newspaper, like print media or something else. These kids in the class were talking about, well, here's how. Yeah. Thank you, Stereo. This one teacher would say, well, a slave would look like this gentleman right here, would be a black guy or a black girl, and a slave owner would look like, a slave holder or owner would look like this person right here. They would point to a white person. That is, you want to talk about divisive? That's very divisive, and that's absolutely going to create a victim mentality, a victim culture, an animosity between the races, which we shouldn't want that. All right, we should not want that. It's one thing for someone wants to be by themselves and they want to be with their own. I have no problem with that. But when you try and separate the races and make them hate each other, I have a big problem with that, because I know God would not like that. Today's culture is just so anti-God, it's ridiculous. Another problem, a lot of our schools today are failing. They're failing. We've seen it. Schools have closed down. Schools, one second here, hold on. One of the big problems is kids are not being taught American history. Now, let me give you an example of why I say they're not being taught American history. They may have a class that says American history, but they're not being taught it. Yep, that's true. That's true, Kurt. Thank you, and Stereo both, and Pygmalion. But either way, a lot, American history is not being taught. How many times, now you tell me this, I've seen this before, where they will have people on the street, like at Fox News or someone else, another news service will have someone, maybe even a late night talk show, and they'll ask these people simple questions. I literally remember someone asking, who was the first president of the United States? And someone said, they look like this. Oh man! And it goes on and on. Some people would sit there and say Abraham Lincoln. I think someone said Barack Obama. It's no. For the love of God! I mean, some of these people are really stupid. I mean, you ask me, I can tell you who the first 5 presidents were. I can tell you all the presidents from current all the way back to the beginning of the 19th century or the 20th century, which would be 1900. I can tell you. Speak anything about God. Yeah, I would. The left is evil. They're flat out evil. I ain't going to take that back. They're evil. I want nothing to do with the left. But the sad thing is, I consider them our enemies. But as they are enemies, we should pray for them. Don't hate them. If anything, you should pity them. Of course, they think they pity us. They think we're a joke. But we should pity them because we know where most of them are going to be going. I hope I'm wrong. I hope a lot of them find the light. They see the light. Some of them are starting to come to the light. Thank God. Who was the most recent person? Jenny McCarthy, who was a former model. She was a playmate. She, because of what happened to Charlie Kirk. Yeah, that's good. You do that, Stereo. I think we all should do that. It's not easy sometimes because the way some of these people are. I mean, tonight we were watching the news, and the way some of these people act, it is tough to have a heart for them because of the way they act and the way that they're so cocky. They're so cocky. They think they know what's going on. They think they know what's best. They want lawlessness, and you can't have a country with lawlessness. You simply can't. Um, but um, Um, but they're not teaching American history, and to me, it's pretty common sense. Another problem with today, depression is at epidemic levels. You can watch the news, I got an itch. Sorry, I'm like a big polar bear, I guess. But either way, you have to. Today, depression is just at epidemic levels, and that how you know that because the amount of drugs that are being pumped out. I mean, you look at Lilly and Pfizer and Bayer and all these pharmaceutical companies; they're getting record profits. I mean, they're prescribing so much. I mean, I'm on sertraline, which is the off-brand of Zoloft, which I know how Mr. Buzz feels about that, but I've gotten off of it before, and I kind of ran into some trouble. So now I'm a little bit gun shy about getting off of it for good because I didn't like when I get off it, my problem gets really bad. So I don't think all of pharmacia. I think most of pharmacia is evil because I think all they want is for us to have to be dependent on them. But I digress. And then you got an addiction. It's this stuff, which is not a bad addiction if you're going to have an addiction. But either way, that is depression is just it ain't just depression. It's all these different diagnoses, OCD and schizophrenia. They're all on the rise. Things are getting worse, unfortunately. I like President Trump. I voted for him, full disclosure. But at the same time, they're being a little bit, how do I put it, dismissive of the way things are going. They're talking about a golden age in America. If you're a Christian, I'm pretty sure most of you guys are Christian, you know how America goes, unfortunately. How things go, not just America, Great Britain, Australia, the world is going to fall into, it's going to be bad. All right. And that's why I hope everyone here, all four of you, including myself, of course, which would be five, I hope everyone here is saved and that they know Jesus Christ. They've repented of their sin because we ain't going to have to see what's going to end up happening to all the countries. What's going to happen. It's going to be horrible. It really is going to be. Today, also, another problem is today in schools and the culture between then and now, it's more violent. I can't count how many times I've seen videos and reports of students lashing out at teachers, either punching them, hitting them, literally fighting them. When I was at school, I don't remember a teacher ever being punched. Never. I do remember some kids kind of getting loud and obnoxious, but I don't remember ever a student saying, F off and, hit me, stuff like that. But you watch the news at night over the last 15 years and stuff, you see quite a bit of it. Teachers being hit, being assaulted. Now, some of that stuff did happen probably back when I was going, but it had been in the big cities. Like there was a Lean on Me, which was a show with a movie with Morgan Freeman. They talk about a true story of that Joe Clark, who in the beginning you see a teacher going out on a stretcher. Now, I don't know if that was based off true events or if they ad-libbed there or they just kind of threw it in there for drama. But I know that school was called Patterson, New Jersey, I believe. It was in Patterson. I know that school was pretty violent. They had to have guards and I think a police presence, but that was an exception. Today, there are a lot of schools that have to have metal detectors. They have to have guards and stuff. Yeah, that we all should be thankful. And as I said, I can't stress that enough. Jesus did not have to do that, and that's yeah. Thank the Father, definitely that I'm saved. Um, but unfortunately, it's just more dangerous today. Um, you got to look at some other things here. Transgenderism is completely out of control. That's obviously a part of the LGBT umbrella. It's completely out of control. Today, they basically promote it. They basically tell kids that I mean, when I was going to school, and a lot of you were going to school, excuse me, I don't remember ever a teacher saying, well, what are your pronouns? And, you might be a girl inside. Do you ever feel like a girl? We never heard any of that crap. I went into school and I went into social studies. We learned about history and stuff like that. English class, we learned about English. Math class, math. I mean, pretty self explanatory. We didn't have teachers talking about, well, you may have a penis, but really you're a woman. If you felt like a girl at one time, flags. I hear. But the schools basically promote it, which is not good. Um, and then I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. This is what really, really angers me. I mean, literally, it gets my blood boiling when they start transitioning a child on their own and they won't notify the parent. This happened out in California, I guess, more than a couple times. And it's not just in California. Don't just think the blue states. There are some red states. Something happened in Montana one time where it was like within the last 5 years where a kid was transitioned. And I believe the parents tried to stop it and they tried to sue the school. And guess what happened? CPS, Child Protective Services, took the kid away from the parents. That's evil. The parents have every right to want their sons to be boys and men and masculine. I'm not saying you got to go out and chew tobacco and like NASCAR, but you know what I'm talking about. A boy should be, a man. Now, there are different kinds of men, just like there are different kinds of women. Sometimes you got quote unquote nerd types. You got some types that are preppies and stuff. But, back in the day, there was always a common link between all of them. You could always tell they all did not act like the opposite sex. Now you had a couple of them. I remember at my school I had one. Matter of fact, everyone was convinced that he was homosexual. Everyone was convinced he was. I think most people thought he was. Come to find out years later, he ends up getting married to a female stripper. It blew my mind because maybe he was doing that the whole time to hang around with girls because he liked girls and he thought, I got to act like them. They're going to see me as kind of threatening. They ain't going to let me in because I don't know. That's all conjecture though. But that stuff is just way out of control now, the transgender stuff. And people need to speak up and stand up against it. Stop cowering. Start having a spine and stand up to it. Because there's just, like I said, they get away with it. There's a saying goes, silence is complicity. And I kind of agree with it. When you're silent, when you don't do anything, that makes the other side even stronger. And then a lot of people say, well, if you start getting kind of activists and stuff, violence could happen. Well, unfortunately, I don't want violence to happen, but children are worth it. They're worth it. I can only find answers to all. I've spent so long trying to study. Yeah. Yep. You're right, Pygmalion. But another thing that's worse today between our culture when we were growing up and today is drugs are way worse. Drugs are way worse. I mean, we're talking about the marijuana today is in some cases, and I just seen something on Michael Savage about a woman that started a group because her son, all he did was pot. And he went out of his mind. He went crazy. Today, the marijuana is synthesized. It's so much more potent than the stuff in the 80s and 90s. I did do marijuana. Yep, that's true. True, Pygmalion. Definitely. But when I was smoking pot, I never smoked it in high school. Never, not once. When I did do pot, it was in the 90s. And you got high, of course. Obviously, I got high. But today, it sounds like these kids today are starting to mess even more with their mind because today they synthesize the stuff, they splice it and stuff between different strands of marijuana, and it gets strong, so strong that a kid can't handle it. We're not supposed to be messing with your mind anyways. All right. Your mind is part of the temple, part of your holy temple that the Lord inhabits. You don't want to make him uncomfortable. I mean, the Holy Spirit. Um, Now, another thing we did not have back when we were younger that they have today is fentanyl. All right. Yeah. Hybrid. Yep. Fentanyl. Fentanyl is deadly. I do mean deadly. I'd say the closest we had to fentanyl back then, as far as being deadly, would have probably been heroin. But heroin wasn't big in the 80s. Heroin was really big in the 70s. But that would have been the most deadly thing we had, because heroin can kind of mess with your mind, but it's really physically destructive. Fentanyl, you can literally die from that little much of fentanyl. And I've seen some people do it. Matter of fact, on Cops one time, they had an episode of a woman cop that stopped um, this car and was starting to search it, and then some of this fentanyl just blew out, like a little bit of it, like little small things. She literally fainted on the sidewalk, and they had to revive her and stuff and give her like smelling salts. And I don't think they narked her, narcon. I don't think they did that, but I mean, that stuff's deadly. Fentanyl is deadly. That's why when Trump, um, yep, that's why when Trump was doing. Don't worry about it, Pygmalion. Hey, it just proves that you got a pulse, that you're concerned. If it gets you, I'm sorry that if it's doing that to you, but just remember who you are in Christ. Remember who you are. Get involved. If you ever feel like I'm not doing enough, get involved. Get involved with a conservative group in town. Don't let them do that to your country. I mean, Great Britain is a great country. Obviously that's where my country, we disseminated from Great Britain, and I've always had a lot of respect for Great Britain. Our ancestors, full disclosure here, they came from Wiltshire. Um, Wren, Wren. That was, I'm sure you've heard of Christopher Wren. We're related to him, the famous British architect, English architect. But Great Britain is a great country, and they're one of the most powerful, most proud countries in the world because of their history, and they have a reason to be. They not just talk the talk, they walk the walk. Um, but either way, guys, um, another thing about the culture is TV is worse. TV is worse. When we were watching TV, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's some people it affects differently. I hear you though, Kirk. But some people it does affect differently. Who's the fourth person here tonight? I wonder. I don't know if it's who it might be. I see Kirk, Pygmalion, Stereo Heavens. Is it Vessel of Peace or Indigo? I'm not sure, but either way. But they TV is worse. I mean, think about it. Look at the shows we had. Tell Lie, Television, Tell Yeah. Look at the shows we had when we were growing up. As far as the 80s and 70s, we had the Jeffersons, we had the Cosby Show, MASH. We had my favorite show, Magnum PI, the old Simon and Simon, Dukes of Hazzard, Incredible Hulk. What do they got today? Trash. Most of the stuff is trash today, and it always seems to have a political angle. Back when a lot of us were growing up. I'm not saying there weren't any politics, and I know the Golden Girls got a little bit political. Barney Miller in the 70s got a little bit political, but for the most part, it was just good old fashioned entertainment television. I mean, look what MTV came from. MTV came from just showing videos. All they did, and probably the most scandalous thing that happened on MTV was when Madonna did her thing at the 85, I believe, VMA Awards, which was maybe the first awards. It was an award show, and she got on stage and really made a slut of herself, basically, which she knows all about. But either way, that's our TVs today. The TV is just turned into garbage. That's why when I watch TV, personally, you want to know what I watch? Watch a lot of old stuff on METV, FETV. Watch a little bit of TV Land. I love documentaries. I love watching. Like, the only problem is when you go to History Channel, Animal Planet, a lot of times they have these stupid reality shows. But I love documentaries. Me and my brother like to watch documentaries of World War II. As I said, I watch Adam 12. Jeffersons, we were watching that. But there's, Mannix, Cannon. Mission Impossible, we watched that last night. We like to watch old shows because I don't want to be, not that I would be influenced because my mind's strong enough that now I know I'm set in my ways and I know the Lord is the way, the truth, and the light. And I know certain things I don't want to watch. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Kirk, I agree that I just don't think all shows were quite trying to indoctrinate people. Like I watch Magnum PI, and I have this the whole all 8 seasons. Yeah, but and I watched Magnum PI, and I didn't see a whole lot of. I don't remember hardly any indoctrination. I'm not saying there might have been some subliminal messages. I think genuinely back then people were not as bad and evil as they are today. Because a lot of them people back in the 70s and 80s, they're not in charge today. They're probably retired or dead. The people that are in charge today are the people that grew up with this a lot of this crap in the 90s that kind of started this. I remember Friends. I remember Seinfeld. Yeah, yeah. Seinfeld and Friends, both of them had gay themes more than a couple times on their shows, and they did it real slyly. They didn't say, "Hey, this is good. Start doing this." But I remember Elaine one time, and one episode, George got ready to get in the car, and he said he wanted Elaine to get in first because so she could sit next to Jerry. She said, "Oh, I detect. Are you a little bit homophobic?" And that was one of the first times I heard that word. It's like, what a bunch of garbage. What kind of stupid word is that? It's a made up word to make normal people feel guilty. So the indoctrination didn't work on me. I had a base. I had a solid base. But music is worse too. Music's probably even worse than television, if that's possible. Music, every song, there's almost no talent to it. You hear it everywhere. People can't even play an instrument. They don't even know how to play an instrument today. They use almost all computers and synthesize. From what I've heard, a lot of the songs and music stuff comes out today from one or couple of groups. One of them is in Norway. They do a lot of this stuff and they disseminate their music everywhere to artists. They sell it to them, Miley Cyrus, Lady Gag, any of them. But that's why a lot of it sounds so similar. When's the last time you've seen someone play a guitar where they were just on stage, like on Jimmy Fallon? You just see them going like this. You can almost tell they're not playing. When's the last time you've seen someone play a guitar-oriented song where it took talent? You don't see it much anymore. I mean, my brother likes Jimmy Fallon. I don't know why, but he does. But I've watched it before occasionally. He's watching it, and almost all these groups sound the same. They have a very similar sound. As I said, the auto-tune sound and the computer music sound. But that is basically what I've got for you tonight. Um, all I can say is if you're not saved, come to the Father, cry out to Him, acknowledge your sin, because it says there's none righteous, no, not one, for all have fallen short of the glory of God. We need a Savior. We need a Savior, and His name is Jesus. He's the Son of God. He's the one that went to the cross for us unworthy. I'm as unworthy as anyone is. I didn't deserve the Lord. None of us deserve the Lord. Some of us deserve Him even less. I'm glad that I've rededicated my life to Him since 2018, and I haven't looked back since then, even though I got saved years earlier. But either way, guys, I appreciate everyone joining me tonight. Try and get the word out on this show if you would. I'd appreciate it. But I'm not. It's not your responsibility. But I'm just saying, talk to someone. Either whether it's on YouTube or whether it's someone in person. God bless Pygmalion. God bless you, brother. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad. Pygmalion NB? Are you? Was you originally NB 1981 UK, or is that a different person? Thank you too, Stereo. Oh boy, my big boy. Actually, he's my big boy is an age. Uh, ooh, UK X para. So you were pretty elite. Well, glad to have you, mate. There's my inner Brit. Yeah, I love him to death. Chewy and then Heathcliff's over there. Both two males, 9 and 7. And after God, Jesus, and my family, they're the most important thing to me. You guys have a good night. I will see you. I got to think of some more subject matter. If you guys got any ideas, something you'd like to talk about, if you guys have any ideas, things you'd like to talk about, let me know. All right. Put it down in the comments. You don't have to even put it here in the live chat. You can put it in the comments after the show's over. But I wish you guys all a good night. God bless. And you guys have a good night. God bless all of you, man. We'll see you.